Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB. Let's get into it. What if using a magic wand every day could actually improve your health? I ran a 21-day masturbation experiment to find out, and the results were so powerful, we turned it into a full-blown scientific study. Over 1,000 people with vulvas joined to measure the impact of daily magic wand use on pleasure, stress, sleep, confidence, relationship connectivity, and more. I'll tell you something right now. The effects go way beyond amazing orgasms. Want to see what we found? Head to magicwandstudy.com to check out the study that's redefining sexual wellness. Here's a fact that you may not know. Nearly 3 out of 4 women or people with vulvas experience pain during sex at some point. I have been one of them. And while the causes can vary, one thing that consistently makes a difference for me is Uberlube. It's silicone-based, doctor-recommended, and designed with sensitive bodies in mind. It lasts long, it's never sticky, and doesn't stain my clothes or sheets. It's the one lube I always keep within reach. Seriously, I have 3 bottles in my bathroom cabinet right now. If you're looking to bring more comfort and pleasure into your sex life, try Uberlube and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 10% off at uberlube.com. Hey everyone, welcome back to another season of Sex Ed with DB. DB here, of course, your favorite sex educator and pleasure expert. And I am so happy to be back with another season focused all about pleasure. Season 12 was one of our most successful and beloved seasons to date. And in times like these, I think we could all use some more conversations about how to get the most pleasure out of our lives. And for our first episode of season 13, I am so thrilled to bring you a conversation with Dr. Shemeka Thorpe. She is an award-winning sexuality educator and an assistant professor of health promotion at the University of Kentucky. Her research is all about the sexual well-being of Black women through sex-positive frameworks and Black feminisms. Intersectionality can be a bit of a buzzword right now, and honestly has been for the last 10 plus years, but Dr. Thorpe's research actually looks at Black sexual pleasure through an intersectional lens. There are so many questions to be asked about how our identities inform our perspectives, especially around things like sex and pleasure. Dr. Thorpe doesn't just ask about the differences between Black men and women, she asks about the differences between heterosexual Black women and queer Black women, and the differences between Black queer women who live in California versus those who live in the Bible Belt. And this is one of those things about Dr. Thorpe that makes her so incredibly brilliant. She is always asking questions and always looking for as much nuance as she can get. And in case you need a rapid-fire show of her brilliance, this episode includes a bedroom brainiac segment for the ages. Truly, no one has ever done what she is about to do in this bedroom brainiac segment, which you'll just have to wait and see. Let's get into this conversation about studying pleasure and sex in the community of Black queer women with our amazing guest, Dr. Shemeka Thorpe. Good afternoon, Dr. Shemeka Thorpe. How are you today?
I am great. How are you?
Excellent. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon in Oakland, California. You and I have become recent pals working together on a kind of a fun project. And now I get to have you on the podcast, which is so exciting. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay. Not only is it such an honor to have you on because you are an absolute legend in the field of sexual health and research, but specifically today, we're going to be talking about Black queer women's pleasure. Incredibly important and definitely does not get enough of the spotlight. And you are someone who's a veteran expert And your groundbreaking research really focuses on the sexual well-being of Black women through sex-positive frameworks and Black feminisms, which is so fun. I love feminisms, plural. You never really hear it like that. So that's really cool. Very fun. Okay, great. So that being said, we're going to start off as we always do with the quick and dirty, which is our rapid fire segment where we get to know our expert with bold questions, honest answers, and a little bit of spice. And so I'd love to hear from you. This is going to be tough to do in a few sentences, but I'm sure you're up for the challenge. I know researchers can be verbose, so this is a big challenge. But what do you think is the number one thing that the layperson gets wrong about the pleasure of Black queer women?
That it's not related to orgasms.
Oh, I want to ask more. I understand this is the quick and dirty. I know, you're right. Please forgive me. Please. Okay, give me 2 more sentences. I want to know what you mean by this.
Yes. So I think oftentimes people equate pleasure to orgasms. And I think in queer sex, there's so much more than just orgasms that make sex pleasurable.
Yes. Correct. That's correct. That's correct. And we'll end it there. I respect it. Maybe this is one and the same, but what's the number one thing that you wish more Black queer women knew about their own pleasure?
I think that we don't have to copy the things that heterosexual people do during sex. Ooh. I think sometimes heteronormativity shows up in queer relationships, and that doesn't have to be the case.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really, really good one. Wow, you are more succinct than I anticipated. You're following the rules. Researchers also like to follow the rules, I think. Yeah. Final question for the quick and dirty. What is one thing that you think everyone, kind of regardless of sexuality, could do right now to better understand pleasure in general?
I always encourage people to do like a yes, no, maybe checklist of things that they might be interested in doing, because I think in order to know what you find pleasurable, you have to know what you might be into. And then sharing that with partners can be extremely helpful because maybe you're into the same things. And maybe you've never talked about it before, but that gives you the opportunity to do so.
Yes. A yes, no, maybe list it sounds so simple, but I guarantee the majority of us have not done it. I think that we see it as like homework or something. And I think that people have a hard time knowing their boundaries and what they like and what they don't like until someone prompts them. So I think consider this your full prompt, beautiful listener, to make your own. Maybe that'll be their pleasure practice of the week, what we do at the end of the episode where we assign some homework. So keep that in mind. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some of your research. As we spoke about in the beginning, you're a veteran in this field, and I want to know about the big sex study and what is hashtag hot girl science. Give me an overview of these things.
All the things. So the Big Sex Study was a study that I led with Dr. Candace Hargans. And so in that study, we were really interested in exploring Black people's experiences of sexual pleasure, of good sex, of bad sex, of anything that makes their sexual experiences just amazing for them. And so we interviewed people, we did focus groups, and we did a survey. So we had over 450 people participate in the survey. And it was just a beautiful, it was fun. But it was a beautiful study where we just had the chance to interview gender expansive people, cis women, cis men. And it was just a great opportunity to learn more about the positive aspects of sex, which I feel like so often sex research focuses on like HIV prevention and STI prevention and PrEP for Black communities. And we just cared about all of the good things and the things that felt good. And so we really wanted to do the Big Sex Study to highlight those experiences. And from the Big Sex Study, Dr. Hargans created Hot Girl Science. And I was like, let's write a paper about it. Because one thing about me, I'm a paper pusher.
So good. I love it.
And so I was like, well, let's write a paper about it. And so With Hot Girl Science, it is inspired by all the songs about being a hot girl. In the paper, we talk about Megan Thee Stallion. We also talk about Cash Money Records. And for us, Hot Girl Science means that we want to make sure that we're having fun throughout the research process, as much fun as we can, and that what we're doing brings us joy, that we're hyping up our friends so that we're citing other Black women, including them in the research process, that we're making sure that the research that we're doing stays sex positive, and that we're staying true to ourselves, all right? We want to show up as our authentic selves in the work that we're doing. And that was what we did throughout the Big Sex Study.
Wow. So amazing. I mean, I think one of the first thing that comes to mind, I can't remember which paper you shared where I saw this stat, but at the time, I think it was a few years ago that this paper came out, there was a stat that only 6.5% of data around Black folks' sexualities was positive. Is that right?
That's true. That's true. I would love to see the updated number because there have been some people in the field, right? And other people who are like pushing out sex positive papers. And I'm always like, we need to redo it now. It has to be higher.
Totally. I mean, it has to be. It must be higher. Because and in some ways that's frustrating that it would be higher just with you and a few other people on it, right? Like it should be a collective thing where there are like hundreds of scientists who care about this dearth of research for this population. But you are changing that, which is really incredible. And for the Big Sex Study, like what were a few of the findings that you all have?
Yeah, so a few of those findings were related to masturbation. So we were really interested in people's masturbation practices and the messages that they received about masturbation. And so we wrote two separate papers, one for cis Black men and one for cis Black women. And for cis women, we saw that there was this pathway of them receiving negative messages when they were in childhood, but positive messages in adulthood. So a lot of them received mixed messages. It was like very few that received strictly positive messages across their lifespan. It was these mixed messages. And it's very confusing because the mixed messages in childhood, if you're taught that masturbation is a sin and it's dirty and you shouldn't do it, and then you get to a certain age, whatever that age range might be, and people are like, yeah, you should definitely do it because if you don't please yourself, how will another person know how to please you? But you have all this shame that you're carrying from childhood when someone said it was wrong. Exactly. So people don't necessarily have the tools that they need in order to feel fully present and feel comfortable in masturbating. And so that's something that we saw with Black women, where it's just a lot of stuff that's steeped in purity culture and religious shame in childhood. And then in adulthood, it's like, go be free, be liberated. But how?
That tracks. Yeah. I mean, but how is the question, right? Is like the A to B. You know, there's a lot of noise and potential for people through their own kind of learning or talking to their friends, therapy, sex therapy, but there's not really like a one size fits all for how people can unlearn some of those harmful messages.
Yeah. Yeah. So we listed like resources for people in the manuscript and talked about therapy as well. So that's one thing. But obviously for men, it was completely different. They're like, that's just what boys do. Fine. That's fair.
Cool. I mean, the classic, like, boys will be boys, right? Like, that's, wow. That's so fascinating. And I do wonder, so did you find that for the cis men in adulthood that they did carry less shame and just kind of saw it as their normal routine?
Because it was one of the things that, like, when they were masturbating during puberty, no one judged them for it. It was like, oh yeah, that's just a normal thing that boys do in puberty. So there's no shame around doing that. And then once they got older, there was only shame if they were in like a relationship because it made them feel like less than, that they had to masturbate because they were in a relationship.
That's interesting. Yeah, the relationship piece, I'm sure there's so much. There's so many intricacies with that when you're studying people's individual behavior and then how actually that shows up when they are in relationship. Fascinating. So how about your work on your research paper, Black Queer Women's Pleasure, a review? Like it felt like this was kind of an overview of everything that maybe is out there or like a lot of the current stuff that's out there. What did you find?
Yeah, so for that paper, we used the Pleasure Mountain framework. And so I always describe Pleasure Mountain as like the Price is Right game show cliffhanger. Like when the little mountain climber is climbing up the side of the mountain, that's like Black women climbing up to peak pleasure. Okay. So just
Love it.
imagine that and keep that in your head.
Okay.
So at the foundation of the mountain are physical components, emotional components, and mental components. And within the mountain, there's these different facilitators, such as orgasms and partner interactions, and two others that then increase peak pleasure. So for the Black queer women review paper, we used the Pleasure Mountain framework to look at articles that are already published to see what they discuss related to those things. And what we saw is there was articles related to orgasms, but there was very few. And in partner interactions, when we were talking about partner sex and relationships, most of those things were related to IPV, so interpersonal violence, and not good things. Like I want to know about relationship satisfaction. I want to know about maintenance. I want to know about how you decided your relationship structure. If you're married, what does love look like? If you're not married, what
Mm.
does love look like? And there wasn't a lot of research on that. And you know, again, with orgasms, there was some research, but we didn't have we didn't have research on faking orgasms or okay, when you had orgasms, was it orgasms with a male partner? Was it orgasms with a female partner? So we're missing a lot of nuance. And so I think, you know, a lot of times in research, people use intersectionality as a buzzword. And I think this is one of those opportunities where it can't be a buzzword, where we see that there's research on Black heterosexual women now. And now we need to go deeper and look at Black queer women. So there's more nuance there.
You took the word right out of my mouth. This is literally my next question, because I know that our listeners at Sex Ed with DB, they have a really good working knowledge of being sex positive, right? Like a lot of people understand that word. They kind of feel like they can embody it by sharing about their sexuality and not shaming others for theirs and for their own. But intersectionality is something that really gets misunderstood a lot. And I'm wondering if you could kind of, given this work that you focus on with Black queer women in your research, can you give a definition in your own words as to what it's like to actually study folks with an intersectional lens?
So for me, intersectionality focuses on the way systems of oppression impacts people's experiences of sexual pleasure and sexual functioning. And so what I mean by systems of oppression, it can be racism. For Black women, that's gendered racism. And so what that means is we can't take off our identity and just be a woman, and we can't take off our identity and just be Black. We are a Black woman. So oftentimes we experience gendered racism. Also, any other, you know, the things that we experience within the healthcare system that impact our sexual functioning. And so for intersectionality, we want to know how these systems impact health outcomes, specifically for Black women, specifically related to sexual functioning. And we know that these things look different for heterosexual women. It looks different for women who are coupled versus women who are single, different for people who may live in different parts of the United States, if they're in more rural areas versus not. So there's all these different identities that can impact us, but it's not necessarily our identities, it's the systems that come with those identities.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine also kind of keeping these frameworks in mind, making connections to outcomes that you learn
Mm-hmm.
from study participants, specifically Black queer women, and thinking through, why are these Black queer women receiving these messages? Is it
Mm-hmm.
related to these systems of oppression and the way in which that they were brought up in these systems?
Mm-hmm.
And writing about that in your papers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, regional differences. Like most of the time when I'm doing research, I study Black women in the Southern U.S. because I'm from North Carolina. So I think there's something interesting about the Bible Belt that I just can't stop studying.
Sure.
So I think the results would be completely different if I interviewed people that were in New York or people that were raised in California. Like they're just experiences and some of that religious shame and some of these systems of oppression might look completely different. And so I think that's something to keep in mind as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, something that I'm thinking about too is like, at least in the past 5+ years with the advancement of social media and how being on the internet has shaped the way that, specifically today, we're talking about Black queer women view themselves and view access to things that make them excited about their sexuality and or porn, audio erotica, different ways that they are now seeing themselves in culture that maybe 5+ years ago they were not.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely agree with that. I hear so many people say that about TikTok. Like, it's like, oh, I see
Yes.
myself in TikTok, or, just scrolling Black lesbian TikTok. It's like, whoa, a whole new world.
Truly, like, I mean, there's also just like a classic kind of thing of like TikTok made me gay. Like the
Yeah,
idea that
yeah,
once
yeah.
you start like really liking queer content, then it just feeds you a bunch of queer
Mm-hmm,
content. And you're like, I
mm-hmm.
like this. Like, this is fun for me. Which is so fascinating. Maybe there's a study in our future that we can collaborate on with TikTok. Black Friday deals are here, and it's time to invest in something that gives you the pleasure you deserve. As a sex educator, I look for body-safe materials, smart design, and toys people actually keep reaching for. For over 20 years, Lelo has been redefining luxury pleasure, making toys that are so beautifully designed they belong on your nightstand and your vision board. The Sona 3 Cruise is one of their icons, and it's designed for the kind of deep, all-encompassing pleasure that you want, and gives you the smoothest path to a fuller, deeper, and more intense orgasm. Go to lelo.com for their amazing Black Friday deals all month long, and use my stackable code SEXEDWITHDB for an additional 15% off.
I'm Saharsat. As a journalist traveling the world, I've covered all sorts. Think war zones, scandals in Tokyo, and have sat down with the Taliban in Kabul. But this podcast isn't about any of that. It's about sex. We'll meet people whose lives, work, and identities sit at the more unexpected edges of sex.
I tap into the vulnerabilities of others and I mold them into a bubbling desire.
From Vespucci, this is Doing Sex.
Okay, moving forward to another important term from a paper that you wrote alongside some colleagues, The Peak of Pleasure, U.S. Southern Black Women's Definitions of and Feelings Toward Sexual Pleasure. You wrote this with Natalie Malone. Is it pronounced Jardin? Dogan? Jasmine Jester, and a friend of the show, Dr. Candace Nicole Hargans. I'd love to talk about intimate justice. In the piece, you share an intimate justice framework combines intersectionality and sex positivity to create a combined understanding of how social and political forces affect what individuals feel like they deserve related to sexual pleasure and satisfaction. And this past season, we had on another friend of the podcast, Dr. Lex Brown James, who gave us the phrase, pleasure is a birthright. And I'm wondering, given intimate justice framework, is this phrase, pleasure is a birthright, something that resonates with your work?
Yeah, I think with my work, it definitely resonates. I think what I see sometimes in research when I'm interviewing people is this idea of like pleasure worthiness. And so I think that's where intimate justice comes in, where it's like, okay, I might not feel worthy of pleasure. Yes, it's my birthright, but I don't feel worthy of it. And I think that's something completely different. So I think sometimes people may not feel worthy because they feel like they have to do or go through certain struggles in order to receive pleasure, right? Like, I need to go through these hoops and barriers, or I need to do all this work before I have time for pleasure and before I have time for orgasm. Who has time to orgasm when I have all this work to do, right? Like, those things could definitely have an impact on people's pleasure worthiness. And so intimate justice focuses on that and who basically society deems worthy of intimacy, of love, of pleasure. And so I think definitely, as Dr. Lex Brown James said, it is a birthright, but there's systems in play that make us feel like it's not.
Yeah, I'm wondering like if you could expand upon that in particular with Black queer women. Like, how do you feel like folks who you have talked to for your studies who are Black queer women why don't they feel like they, why don't they feel like they're deserving or worthy of pleasure? Like what comes up, and how does kind of like, this is a double barrel question, not supposed to do that in research. But I'm thinking like, that's A, and then
Yeah.
B is like, then what do we do about it? Like
Yeah.
how do we kind of change that idea for those folks?
Yeah. So I will say, I think Black queer women think they're more worthy of pleasure than Black heterosexual women. And we know in research in general that that queer people have better sex and more pleasurable sex than heterosexual people. Now, for Black queer women, the reason why they might not feel worthy of pleasure, a lot of that is related to sometimes internalized homophobia. So depending on where you were raised, feeling like the sex that you're having is wrong, right? So if I feel like the sex that I'm having with my partner is wrong, and that's going to be, going through my head the entire time I'm having sex. So I can't be mindful when I'm having sex. I can't be in my body. I'm actually just spectating. I'm not even there, and to have sex.
Dissociating.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, yeah, I'm there, but it's not pleasurable for me because I'm thinking about all the ways I'm not worthy. Or if it is religion, that could be another thing, right? So you have religion and you're thinking about, oh, this is a sin. And not in the sin that like heterosexual people would think about it, but like in a sin, and I'm possibly going to hell, depending on what church you were raised in. So then you're thinking about that when you're having sex. But I think the beautiful thing about pleasure worthiness is that our worthiness changes over time, sometimes depending on who our partners are. So I think sometimes your partners can boost your pleasure worthiness. If you have spaces where you're able to be more vulnerable, places where you're able to explore more, and just be your authentic self, I think that's helpful. I think friends, right? So having these sex positive friends that can hype you up and be like, yeah, go do that. Or the friends that you can just drive to the sex store. Like I am the friend that drives people to the sex store.
You're like, get on in.
We have taken road trips to the sex store. Like, having friends like that that's helpful because it's like, oh yeah, I am worthy of pleasure. Yes, this is uncomfortable, but I'm with someone that I know won't judge me. And so I think that's super helpful as well.
Speaking of sex toy stores, we actually have a question here. I'm curious, like, I feel like, when I did my research with Dr. Candace Hargons, for the 1,000-person Magic Wand study that we did, what came up for us is how little research there is around sex toys. And if there is research around sex toys, it's usually around dysfunction and how people are using sex toys to mitigate that, rather than saying like, this just rocks and I like it. And here, let's study like why you like it or what you like about it. Yeah. And so in your work, researching sexuality of Black queer women, have there been any specific sex toys that you have seen come up frequently as something that people have named to you a bunch, or something that has been interesting?
I don't think, thinking hard about that. I don't think that there's been anything that people have named, like a specific toy that they've named that they liked.
Do sex toys come up generally?
No.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
And if it does, it'll be like a dildo, but not like just like a vibrator.
That's really
Or they'll be like, during sex, we use a vibrator and we use a dildo or a strap. That's what they might call it. And then it's like, okay. And then that'll be it. But it won't, for the most part, no. Even when we were having conversations about masturbation, it would just be like a toy.
Okay. Do you have any sense as to like, is it kind of like internalized shame, or is it just that people just are not used to chatting about sex toys, or what's your sense?
So I think when people started doing sex toy parties, which was like pre-COVID, when they were like super, super big in 2014 to 2020, I feel like everyone was doing sex toy parties. And so then it was fine to talk about it in your group of friends. Then we had the COVID pandemic, and during the COVID pandemic, the rose toy took off. And everybody wanted a rose toy, and it was
also
all over TikTok. Yes, all over TikTok. And so everyone had the rose toy. And so then people were just talking about the rose, like rose, 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 rose. And so now, I don't know if there's a general assumption that that's what people think. As like researchers, they assume that's what they're using. I don't know, but people just don't talk about it. They're more open to talking about like kink practices. Natalie Malone wrote a paper from the Big Sex Study about kink practices and BDSM practices that Black women engaged in and how they came into kink. And so they're open to talking about that, but it's never like, I use this sex toy.
Fascinating.
So now I'm curious.
That's another thing that we should do.
Add it to the list.
Add it to the list. That's really interesting. I mean, okay, so that to me is a surprise. I'm guessing, or I'm asking you now, what's been maybe a couple of the most surprising parts of your research thus far?
Yeah. Well, initially, I just wanted to research sexual pleasure. And I somehow ended up in like sexual pain disorder world. And so I think that's been surprising because when I first started this research, I was just curious about like sexual pleasure, good sex. What is sexual pleasure? You know, what activities, and when we're talking about pleasure mapping, what activities do Black women love to engage in? And then I realized there's all these barriers to pleasure. And one of them is pain. And no one was researching pain with Black women. And so it led me to do more research on sexual pain, like symptoms, sexual pain disorders, treatment for sexual pain, and showed how Black women basically were not being diagnosed and their symptoms were being overlooked. And basically they were being medically gaslit related to their symptoms of vulvar pain and genital pain, and how that prevented them from having pleasurable sex. And so I think that's something surprising to me that I didn't expect to get into. But I'm grateful to be in that space and to continue doing research in that area. Another surprise, I think how excited people are just to talk. Like
they're craving it.
Yeah. It's like, wow, I know you're not going to judge me. Let me tell you my whole sexual history. And it's like, great, tell me more.
I love it.
So I think that's helpful, not only for me, but I think also the students that I'm training, because they assist with interviews. And so for a lot of them, we actually conduct the interviews in our research team before we do them with participants. Part of that is so we get comfortable with the questions, but then also if anything is uncomfortable, we want to make sure we're eliminating that question if a majority of us feel like it's an uncomfortable question. Yeah. And for them, like, just like, wow, I had a great interview. You know, this went well. Like, we talked about this, and this. And I could have did this differently, but wow, it was great. So like for them to realize that people are actually open to talking about sex, I think it also makes them more open to researching it and being more open with themselves and their sexual experiences as well.
Yeah, working with students when that like light bulb goes off, there's really nothing better than that. It's very special. I've seen it when I've gone in the classroom for, sex ed for middle and high school students, and just seeing their, mind expand and be changed is really, really impactful. And especially when you're working with, is it college students?
It's all graduate students.
Grad students who, probably for the first time are also thinking about their own sexual experiences, like back to the yes, no, maybe list, right? Like they probably haven't articulated their sexual experiences as, clearly as they're hearing people articulate, and naturally that'll make them reflect on their own, which is really excellent. It's just like very special that you're providing that to them.
Yeah.
All right. One more question here before we get into our final segment, which is Bedroom Brainiac. So be careful. We got a lot of fun pop culture stuff coming at you. But if time and money weren't a factor, how would you want to see your field expand? What would you want to see studied more? What are your hopes?
So now I'm interested in sex toys.
That's so good.
I think, my hopes would be to create some type of like holistic sexual wellness center for Black women. And I think there could be research there related to, like, I know people that sell sex toys. So having like the sex toy grouping of that center, thinking about having a pain center and how do we have pelvic floor therapists there and physical therapists that are helping with people that, may need that and may want that, having a counseling center. So to me, it's like there just needs to be one holistic hub for treatment related to, sexual difficulties. I definitely wish that there was more research related to sexual pain and that there were sexual pain centers and medical providers that were actually curious and willing to treat Black women that may have some symptoms of sexual pain disorders. And most importantly, I think now one thing that I'm seeing is how much your partner matters in your sexual experiences, whether that's a casual sex partner or not. Because in my research with Black women, I've seen that they are less likely to talk to their partner about sexual pain if they're a male partner, so if their partner's male, and if it's an unfamiliar partner, so just casual sex. And to me, there needs to be some type of relationship counseling or relationship components or relationship education about sexual difficulties, about pleasure, about orgasms. So just more relational work in that way.
Yeah, so incredibly important. I really like that piece around, your whole mentality around your pleasure can really change with a partner, because I think that it's like a tricky thing to say, because obviously we want people to be their whole, full, authentic selves without partners. And think about like who you are with your community, like your friends make you better people, and having a really great partner who can introduce you to prioritizing your own pleasure can really make a huge difference, especially it sounds like for Black queer women. So really, really awesome. You're so cool. Thank you so much for sharing all of this and for sharing your research. Are you ready for Bedroom Brainiacs?
I think so.
Okay. So this segment we haven't done it in a little while, but it's a trivia that's on the topic. So specific to Black queer women today. And number one, which icon hard launched her coming out with an Instagram post of her marriage to another woman in 2020?
Niecy Nash.
Oh, that's correct. Ding, 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 ding. Here's a quote from her. She told People magazine, "I don't feel like my marriage is my coming out of anywhere, but rather a going into myself and being honest about who I love. And I'm not limiting myself on what that love is supposed to look like."
Ooh,
Beautiful.
I love that. Also, check
Niecy
out
Nash.
their Halloween costumes.
Oh
They
my
do the
God,
best
can't wait.
couple costumes. So please check them out.
Oh my God. I just love Niecy Nash. I think she is such a fantastic actress.
Yeah. I agree.
And she's also very, very beautiful. So there's that as well. Okay, number two. Here we go, Dr. Shemeka. This protege of Prince dropped a queer concept album alongside an emotion picture, which is a play on motion picture, co-starring Tessa Thompson.
Janelle Monáe.
Janelle Monáe, yes. They have since come out as non-binary, pansexual, and someone who's been in both monogamous and E&M relationships. They're a quadruple threat. So like they do everything. Everything. Truly, I remember seeing Janelle Monáe in Hidden Figures, and I was like, "You're this good at acting too?" I was like kind of pissed, honestly, because God doesn't smile at everyone in the same way, as they say. Is that a phrase? I don't know. Okay, here's number three. What TV show earned Janet Mock 3 Emmy noms?
Pose. That's my favorite.
Oh my, you are impeccable. Pose. She was nominated in the show's Best Outstanding Drama Award as a producer in season 1, the same award again for season 3, and Outstanding Writing for a Drama Series for season 3. So absolutely impeccable. I really loved that show. I thought it was so fun and so camp and just really ridiculous, but really excellent. Okay, we have 2 more. These are getting harder. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. This host of Good Morning America recently celebrated her 20th wedding anniversary to her wife with a trip to Rwanda for the #Giants of Africa initiative.
This is one of my mom's favorites, so I hope I don't get it wrong, but Robin Roberts.
That's right. Robin Roberts came out publicly in 2013, but their relationship began all the way back in 2005. So happy 20th wedding anniversary, Robin. And her partner, I think I looked this up and her name was Amber, but let me confirm. Confirmed. Amber Lane. Happy anniversary. We have one more here. You mentioned this person earlier, so I think that you're going to get this right.
Okay.
Which bisexual rapper opens one of her songs referencing a strap-on in the lines, "No, I gotta stay fly like 3-6, got the strap-on in my bag like a freak bitch"?
Megan?
That's right.
Okay.
You get 100% on Bedroom Brainiacs. This song is Like a Freak. She's openly bisexual, and I think she's still dating Klay Thompson, who's one of my personal crushes, and has had segments in live performances featuring the bi pride flag colors. And she once told Out, "I'm looking for a new girlfriend if anybody's trying to be a hot girl. I like little petite things with tattoos. That's my type." And apparently basketball players.
Yeah.
So that was Bedroom Brainiacs. I don't think we've ever had anyone do this segment and get 100% correct.
What?
So can we your award is going in the mail. So thank you so much for participating. Any last kind of thoughts anywhere that you wanna send folks so they can learn more about your work?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram or on Facebook at Dr. Shemeka, Shemeka. And then also feel free to reach out for me if you're interested in learning more about my research or research mentorship. I'm just here to help in any way.
Oh, so sweet. Spoken like a true professor. And we'll also be listing some of the links to Dr. Shemeka's papers in the show notes. So if you're interested in learning more, feel free to go there. We'll also be listing her Instagram, Dr. Shemeka. Thank you so much for being here. This was so wonderful.
Thank you for having me. I had fun.
And welcome to the Afterglow, where we wind things down, reflect on big takeaways, and leave you with one juicy thing to try, think about, or explore before next week. This conversation with Dr. Thorpe was so much fun, on top of being so incredibly fascinating, honestly. Across pretty much all fields of research, women, Black people, and queer people are often left out of the conversation and the data. And seeing Dr. Thorpe bridging those gaps and finding the stories from Black queer women is so incredibly important. And seeing her focus on pleasure instead of pain and harm is so invigorating. And even though pain is a part of the conversation, I just love how she touched on data being typically so focused on STIs or interpersonal violence. And I love that she is focusing on joy and intimacy and what makes for great sex. I also loved how central community is to Dr. Thorpe's findings. Community shapes so much of how we see the world, whether it be our friends or our partners. And if you're surrounded by people who treat sex as no big deal, that's going to normalize the idea that sex and masturbation are no big deal and are normal. If you're surrounded by people who never talk about sex or treat it like a scandalous topic, that is going to normalize the idea that sex is something that should always be hush-hush. Our communities inform so much of how we perceive our daily lives, and hearing how central that is for queer Black women makes so much sense. When you've got friends who you can see yourself in, you know that you have people you can turn to who will really get where you're coming from. And when talking about things that have stigmas around them like sex or orgasms or masturbation, feeling safe and represented in your community can give you that safety net that you need to comfortably talk and ask questions. Highlighting different communities, perspectives, and identities is vital to how we talk about sex and understand it. Sex and pleasure are not the same across different communities, and the more research we can get, the better. I, for one, would love to see Dr. Thorpe's Holistic Sexual Wellness Center. Someone please get her an unlimited budget stat because she deserves it, or at least a grant to make this happen. And now for the pleasure practice of the week. Dr. Thorpe and I did talk about making a yes, no, maybe list for yourself. So this is kind of a two-pronged thing. One, make a yes, no, maybe list for yourself. Think about the way in which you are super into certain acts and write them down. Think about what you're not into, write it down. Think about things that you're still trying to explore and put it on the maybe list. This helps us inform what we actually like by ourselves and with a partner. The second part of your pleasure practice of the week is think about how your identities inform your personal feelings around sex. Did growing up in a conservative or especially religious household make sex or masturbation a source of shame for you? Does having a wide net of sexually liberated, cool, fun, weird, queer friends help you feel like sex is as normal and chill as making your coffee for the day? How does race play a factor in your feelings around sex? What about your gender, your orientation, or where you're from in the world? Once you've picked that all apart, take a look and see how you could be taking steps away from shame and towards joy. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of season 13. Love y'all. Talk to you next week.